Alright, we're going to right now create a project as a class, and we're going to do it a little bit differently. You don't have to turn this in. Alright, but I'd like you to please get into Android Studio, start a new Android Studio project. It will be an empty activity as we have been doing. Save it where you happen to save yours. And we're going to call this one TipCalculator. Okay, we're going to create a TipCalculator. And then we're going to come back and we're going to refine it. All right? Give you a second to hopefully catch back up. My guess is between doing this one and then we're going to make a couple fairly superficial changes to it and do it, for a second version of this, it'll take no longer than till maybe 2 o'clock. That's my hope at least. And then I'm going to give you a handout and the rest of the period will be lab. Remember, I will not be here tomorrow until probably 2:30. All right, and if you are participating tomorrow, if you're one of the 3 participating in Skills USA, talking to Mr. Corrigan, I gave him a copy of the schedule. It's supposed to end at 1:30. He said, I see no reason then why your 3 students can't be back here by 2:30. So if you decide not to come back, I'm supposed to mark you absent. I'm just telling you that's what he said. That's not what I said. All right. Either he will be in here right at 12:35 to take attendance, or that doorway will be open and Mr. Groherring will take attendance at 12:35. Okay? So again, we're calling it TipCalculator, and I'm going to click Finish. As I mentioned to you previously, we're going to do this differently than what we've done in the past. Now, I'm going to ask you to try to do something, and you may or may not have ever thought about this. It's going to be hard for you to do. All right? I'm going to let the project basically build itself here. All right. You know right now what it looks like. In other words, if I go out here, or try to, there we go. So if I go out here, you know right now pretty much, I think, what main-activity.java looks like, and you know pretty much right now what activity main XML looks like. All right? We're going to try to do this. Now, I'm not watching you, so if you go, well, I tried, but I couldn't do it, then that's fine. We're going to try to build this entire project, and we're going to try not to look at our screen. In other words, we're going to attempt to go into text mode and build the entire project from text mode. All right? It's very hard for a lot of people to do that. Oh, I make a change. No, I want to look at it. No, I want to make another change. No, I want to look at it. But see if you can do it. I'm giving you the code. You're not turning it in. All right? The worst thing that's going to happen is something's not going to work. All right? And I thought of doing this and just giving you the code. The problem with that is some of you just start typing, and you won't be listening or you won't be doing anything else. All right? Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do is actually something a little different than that, and that is I want you to go into your res folder right here. I want you to go into the res folder, and I want you to go under values, and I want you to open up your strings.xml file, please. So go into the res folder, underneath res, go into the values folder. Underneath that, please open up strings.xml. We are going to talk about styles and colors, just not now. All right? Okay, so with that open, we're going to add our strings first. In the past, we've always gone in and we've added our controls and then added the strings that go along with them. You don't have to do it that way. So we're going to add what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 7 strings. All right. The only string that's here right now is the one you get by default, which is the name of the project or the app name. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is and this will be just a one activity project that we're doing. Okay, that's it. So I'm just going to put these in. We'll come back and talk about them in a couple minutes. Bless you. Oops. Right, is it? In fact, let's not do that. Let's put this will look nicer like this, I think. 10%. Okay. That's it right there. We added what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So add those. When you're done, feel free to do a file, save all, and then just stop for a minute, please. When we get done building this, it'll look something like what I'm going to put on the board here. So we'll say at the top, Android, TipCalculator. Then underneath that, we're going to have an edit text where you can put in a bill amount. All right. I'm not even going to worry about a hint or anything, but just something like that. Then we're going to have 3 buttons, 10%, 15%, and 20%. All right. Then underneath that, we're going to have a tip, and we're going to have a total. Now you're all smart enough to figure this out. So if I come in here and I go into this bill amount that's right here and I put 100 and I click the 10% button, it should say 10 or 10.00 or something like that. And then the total would be 110.00. Does all that make sense? So it's fairly straightforward as far as what we are going to do. All right? At least in my opinion, it is. You may agree with that. You may not. But part of the reason that I'm asking you, now what I'd like you to do next, again, if you haven't done a file save all, go ahead and do that. Then go to your activity main file, but make sure you probably have the design opened up. Change it so that the text is open. We are going to write this entirely in text. All right? And you might say, well, why? 2 reasons. Number 1, believe it or not, most people who actually do this for a living, this is how they do it. Secondly, as you're going through this, it's going to drop down the IntelliSense, and you might see a few properties you never knew existed before. So feel free to play around with them if you want to do that. All right, I'm going to do very little of that, but just so you know, if you want to, you can. Now, the first thing that we're going to do, and it might sound weird, is other than this first line, if you don't know, that line in blue, that is called an XML prototype. Okay? You've heard me do a little bit of song and dance about this before, but the idea about 15, maybe even closer now to 20 years ago, all right, HTML was said to have been dead. Well, you see how that worked. All right, but it was said to have been dead, and it was going to be replaced by XML. XML is still used. It's used in here. It's used in a lot of applications. All right, but it never really caught on. The reason I'm bringing that up is notice the version number. All right, it's still at version 1 because they never made another version. Okay, and the encoding basically just means that we're using, all right, Unicode character set. So the first thing I want you to do is to take everything that's not in there other than that line, other than line 1, all of it, and get rid of it. Everything's gone other than that. You're going to get some red stuff on your screen because you don't have a layout set up right now, etc. We're going to change all of that stuff in just a minute. Okay? And we are going to do some typing here. Sorry. But like I said, in my opinion, for whatever this is or is not worth, all right, it's going to be worth it. Even if it takes us a good hour or hour plus to do this. All right, first thing we're going to do, the reason I had you remove that, is we're going to use a different kind of layout. Everything we've done up until this point for the entire semester, so for 5 weeks plus, has been on the default layout, which is the constraint layout. There are other types of layouts that you can use. One of the other types of layouts that you can use is what's called the linear layout. So I'd like you to start by putting in that. Don't worry that right now, when you look at, whoa, what's wrong? It's all red. It won't be in a couple minutes. All right? So we're putting in a linear layout, and I probably should have left this from before, but it's fine. I'm typing everything you're typing in. Okay, and again, don't worry about the errors. They will, as my wife would say, subside in a bit. All right. Now, again, one sec. You may or may not know what this means. XML NS stands for XML namespace. This is one of those URIs, or Uniform Resource Indicators, which may or may not exist. I don't know if that's what you're going to tell me, John, but I spelled Android wrong. Okay. I don't think I got anything else wrong in there. Yeah, please, if you see, you know I'm king of the screw-ups, so if you see me screw something up, it isn't because I'm doing it on purpose. All right? Now, the stuff that is in here next, I'm not going to be going over it very much because it's the internal stuff. You can find it on developer.android.com and a lot of other places. But I'm going to start in here with a couple more XML NS lines. Check on the second one here. Okay. Come on. Notice it's even trying to help me with IntelliSense right here. All right. So that's the beginning of our setup. There's still more to go. All right. This is basically telling us our APK, just so you know this, our APK is what you end up creating, all right? Not when you do a compile and run, but when you are done and you're ready to send your app to the App Store. You compile it into an APK. That's what gets sent to the App Store. Just so you know that. All right? And it's got our tools here. And again, all of these things that you see right here, these 3 lines, these XML namespaces, they are all URIs, Uniform Resource Indicators. You don't have to do this. If you want to, you can even do that. It doesn't matter one way or the other. All right? So I'm going to add a couple more lines here. Notice I put that in, and if you look on the screen here, the IntelliSense has immediately kicked in. And there's only one thing that starts with M, which is match parent, which is what I want, so I just hit tab, boom, it's there. Now this last line, yours will not be exactly the same as mine. Why? Because you have to put here, for this tools context, you have to put the name of your package in there. My guess is none of you have a package that's the same name as mine is. All right, so you can grab yours from here, just so you know. You can click your main activity, you can grab this. That's what you want. So I'm going to do that. Come on. Come on. There we go. Come on. There it is. Come on now. Text. Come. When you get to the end of that line, if you look on the screen here, make sure to close this tag with a greater than sign. It will put an ending linear layout on the bottom of what you currently have. So yours should look like this when you get done, except for the fact that yours will have a different right here. it will have a different package name than what I have. Now, when you get done, if you take a look at this, and if somebody raises their hand and says, hey, how come that second XML NS line is gray? I don't know. Did you notice, though, there were a bunch of different stuff was red, etc.? And as we worked our way through, all right, it kind of fixed itself, for lack of better words. All right? So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put in a text view. And you'll notice as soon as I put that in and hit enter, notice what it did. It gave me a width and it gave me a height. Okay? Well, you know what? I don't even want that to be first. I want first it to be ID. And I'm going to call it text view title. Again, you may not like that name. That's the one I happen to use. All right. This is going to be match parent, and this one is going to be wrap content. Okay. I'm going to put in about 3 more lines, then we're going to go back and talk about every line that's in here. Okay, I'll give you a second to catch back up. All right. We are about a third of the way through this file, so just so you get an idea of how much we'll be typing. All right. And again, you see I spelled something wrong, please tell me. Now, on July 5th, I will be here 4 years. When I first taught this class, that's back in the olden days, you had to always do this when you were working with an ID. You had to put an @ sign there and a plus sign and ID, and then you could put your ID in. You've already noticed, because you made enough IDs yourself, in design mode you don't have to do that anymore. But it still keeps the old syntax. You may or may not have noticed that when you put something in your strings file and you reference it, it's @string. There'll be some other ones that we'll see later on in the semester. But this is letting the system know that the ID or the name of the control is text view title. All right. Notice next we've got 2 things: match parent and wrap content. Match parent says be as greedy as you can be. Take up as much room as you possibly can. So you'll notice it's the width. We're telling it to take up a width that's the width of our entire screen. Does that make sense? Yes? No? Does that make sense? The other one, the height says wrap content, which means only take up the room it needs. Not as much as it can use, but only what it needs in order to be able to do its job. All right? All right. Then we've got text alignment center. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody what that's going to do. All right. Then we've got text style bold. And again, hopefully that makes sense. All right. I don't even know if we need that tools text alignment center. It threw it in there. All right. Please look up on the screen here because I'm going to break the rule I told you to do before. If you look up on the screen, please. All right. It's up there. It's hard to see, but it should be up there. All right. So I've got a linear layout and I've got a text view titled there. Okay. So I'm going to jump back into design mode. Into text mode, and I'm going to continue on. All right. The next thing that I am going to do in here is make another text view. Now, there's different ways that we can do this. There's different ways, but it's going to have a lot of the same features that I have in here. So even though it's going to give me an error when I first do it, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it in right below where it is. Now, it's giving me an error because it says I'm trying to give two things the same ID. Everybody see that? And that should make sense to you. All right. It says you already have a text view title. So the first thing, of course, we're going to do is we're going to change that. I'm going to change that to text view bill amount. All right. And then you'll notice I have no more errors. I want this to be match parent again. I want this to be wrap content again. Okay. Also, I'm going to put in something I don't have up above. I want there to be a little space in there. Hopefully one of the things that you will realize as we go on this semester, and it'll hit you at some time, maybe it'll be when you're working on your semester project, maybe it'll be somewhere else. But you'll start to look at it and you go, man, there's like a few things in here that we did back in the days of HTML. Yeah, including margin and padding. And they're pretty much used the same way. So right under this height for wrap content, and it doesn't matter, just so you know, these things that are in here, these things, they can go in any order. What I like to do is I like to have my IDs at the top. That's just something that I've learned over time. But as far as the order in which you put these, it doesn't matter a lick. Not at all. All right? But the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go layout. Oops. And I'm going to put in some top margin. All right? And in that top margin, I'm going to put in there 20 dp. Let me put, that's just about everything. All right? Now, I want to put my text in here. In fact, we didn't even do that on this one, did we? Don't we? Didn't we make a string that was called title? I believe so. Yeah. So let's go down here and let's add that. So go back up to your first text view and type in Android text equals @string dash, and look what's there. All 7 of the ones that we set up. All right, and double click on title. Now, if I go back, because it didn't show it before, now you can see where it says Android Calculator. Was wondering why when I looked at it before, why isn't it showing anything? Because I'm an idiot. Okay. Again, the order in which you do these does not matter. Yes. I got 3 L's on what? On bill. Thank you. What? The bill amount? We'll see as we go on. How's that? Question was just asked, shouldn't this be an edit text? Because we're going to be putting a bill in there. Okay? Or should it stay a text field? Okay? Let's leave it for now. Let's leave it the way it is and see if it matters in the end. Okay? All right. So we've got this. Here's another thing for you to understand. These aren't the kind of things you memorize, but they're the kind of things that you have to understand. Look on the screen. Everybody plays. And look at this line. I don't know if it'll let me highlight two lines at once or not. No. So look at this line here and look at this line here. You'll notice that up here it's got DP and down here it's got SP. DP stands for density pixels. SP stands for scalable pixels. You use SP with fonts. Did you all hear that? Because it meant to scale based on the type of device you are using. You use DP for virtually everything else. All right? So when you look in here, what do we have? We've got our ID, we've got our width, we've got our height, we added some top margin. All right, we didn't put in a text. We can do that. Oh, I'm sorry, we've got our text in here, or didn't we? We put it, yeah. All right. We want to put in our text right here. Okay, so Android, text equals, same thing that we did here. All right, so again, as soon as we put in add string / you can see what's there. And there, believe it or not, a lot of times I know when I do stuff, I go back and I watch some of my old tapes and I go, oh my God, that was just terrible. But usually the concepts are there. And again, what I want to show you is some people like to do it like this. They like to make their strings first, and they like to build it from here. They just find that easier to do. And you might turn around and say to yourself when we're done, well, that's some people. That ain't me. I'm doing it the other way. Fine. Totally fine. But there's also a chance that had I shown it to you this way first, then had we gone and done it, all right, the other way, you might have liked the other way better. Because everybody's different. But you know two ways of doing it now. All right, that's more than anything else. That's the big thing. So we want to choose bill amount here, because that's what it is. It's our bill amount. All right. And that text size, that's a little bit too big at 24. So I'm going to shrink that down to 18. Okay? And again, I can't say this to you too many times. The order in which you put these in doesn't matter. All right? All right. Everybody caught up? All right, because I'm going to put in the next component then. And the next component is an edit text. Okay? And again, when you do this, you can see what gets provided for you by default. So as soon as you type in a less than sign, all right, as soon as you type in a less than sign and the word edit text and hit tab or hit enter, this is what's there. All right. First thing I'm going to do is I want to give it its name. All right. And if you look up on the screen here, you'll notice I have a text view bill amount and I've got an edit text bill amount. They do not have to have the same name. I find it easier. It's kind of like, I think I told you this back in the days of C#, that I like my label to have the same name as the text box that it's next to, except one is prefixed with label and one is prefixed with text box. Not everybody feels that way, and it's totally fine. All right. Next, this is going to be my text field. Okay? I'm sorry, my edit text. I want this one, again, this one will be match parent, and the height will again be wrap content. And this time I'm going to add a little margin bottom. And 20 dp. Plus, I'm going to add a little margin top. Now, this is the kind of thing, if you switched back and you looked at it in design mode, say, yeah, you can look at it and you could tweak it and play with it. And do I don't care about background colors right now. I don't care about any of that stuff. You can always go back and add that later. All right? Don't worry for right now what M's are, okay?